So after all of that, Mercedes are cheating, Red Bull are cheating, Mercedes spent all that money just to lose stuff, well, it turns out that nobody overspent. Nobody. All of that was for nothing. Because a couple of months back I did a video that was basically, shall we just wait until everything is laid out first before pointlessly speculating for clicks? This being when reports came out of Germany and Italy saying that at least 3 teams had spent over the cost cap, and one team more than the other 2 was in way more trouble. Those teams were rumoured to be any combo of Mercedes, Red Bull, Aston Martin, and somebody else. I think Haas was one of the teams. I mean, how has Haas overspent? And in that video, I did humour the rumours. It sort of became a joke title for these kind of videos. Let's humour the rumour. It's a every so often type of video where I go, okay, let's pretend that this has happened, and then look at what it could mean, where it could go, what is alleged to have happened, who could be moving where, and so on and so forth. Which then led to a bunch of comments dropped in the comment section writing PhD level essays about something I never said. People ask me what the best comments I get are. It's those ones. I never said Red Bull had overspent in 2022, I'm saying what might happen if they did. The paragraph you're arguing about started with, let's humour the rumour, but I digress. But I guess that's what happens when there is a precedent for this kind of thing, because the whole Red Bull overspending stuff was, well, I mean, it was crack cocaine for these F1 clickbait channels and F1 clickbait websites, especially so given that Red Bull were found to overspend in a season that was incredibly toxic and ended in such a way that it, what's the best way of putting it, left a bitter taste in people's mouths. And not just for Hamilton fans and Mercedes fans, but I know Ferrari fans, Aston fans, Williams fans, and McLaren fans who all felt the same way. And then there's the stuff on the website formerly known as Twitter, being awash with, it's this team, it's on the internet, it must be true types of posts, with fan bases baiting each other because they can. I think I've muted pretty much every driver fan account at this point, and I think I only follow 2 accounts to do with Formula 1. Matt Bishop, because he does the On This Day stuff, which is useful for doing videos, and I think Autosport because they do interesting polls. They did one the other day. I need to do a video on that. It's quite interesting. But I think I actually follow the account that posts the utterly insane LinkedIn stuff than I actually do Formula 1 on Twitter at this point. But that might just be a Twitter problem rather than an F1 problem. But it has to be said here that the FIA's process for doing the whole thing this year has been way more meticulous than it was last year. When auditing the 2021 accounts, the cost cap administration, or whatever it's called, had a team of less than a dozen people. Now it's got even more people doing that. I think it's around 20 to 25, purely to avoid a repeat of last year's news that Red Bull had breached the cap almost a full year after the previous season had ended. A lot of people said, why are we only finding out this now? The FIA explained, the review has been an intensive and thorough process, beginning with a detailed analysis of the documentation submitted by the competitors. Additionally, there has been an extensive check of any non-F1 activities undertaken by the teams, which comprise multiple on-site visits to team facilities and careful auditing procedures to assess compliance with the financial regulations. Non-F1 activities was something that came up a lot in my previous video, particularly in the comments, because so many teams, Red Bull, Mercedes, Aston Martin and McLaren, all have some form of external programs. Ferrari won Le Mans at the first attempt on their return to top-class endurance racing, which might have raised a few eyebrows among some F1 fans. Red Bull was doing some sort of ground effect road car, McLaren has its customer GT3 program and its road car division, and Mercedes is one of the biggest road car manufacturers on the planet. So hiding money in various programs attached to those teams is a legitimate concern, especially things like that Red Bull ground effect car and the Mercedes Project 1. There's also the concern that I've brought up before, I'll do it again in case you've not heard about this, is people like Ford coming in for 2026 and teaming up with Red Bull. There had been concerns raised from the other engine manufacturers, more around the time that Porsche was supposed to be entering Formula 1 than anything else, that Red Bull or another team would use this new manufacturer spending rule to use that extra money available to make somebody else's engine better, instead of that manufacturer just building one from scratch, if that makes any sense. I mean, honestly, some of the loopholes that some of these people find are quite ingenious when you think about it. And one of the things that did come up in the comments as well was all of those Ferrari employees that got shifted from the Formula 1 program over to the hypercar program. But that was mainly due to some Italian law or European Union law that basically said you can't just sack these people because there is a cost cap or something similar in your particular industry. So Ferrari basically just went, why don't we just take them from here and give them new jobs here? I mean, that's a good idea, to be fair. And another part is that none of these procedural breaches were found either. Basically, these are incorrect filings and no dotted I's and crossed T's in the paperwork, something that caught out Aston Martin and Williams last time out. And that, to be honest, is something to be expected in a brand new way of submitting things. Someone is going to get it wrong. Even if 2021 hadn't been as ugly as it was and Red Bull not overspent or won, the procedural breaches would have been non-news. Because, well, I mean, it happens with paperwork. Sometimes things get overlooked. I don't think there's a person alive that's ever filled in a piece of paperwork and then sent it off and gone, I did put that bit in right, didn't I? I did fill this bit in and that bit in and, oh God, what if I got it wrong? Well, it might just be me. I'm useless at this kind of thing. If anyone watching has ever had to work with the Financial Conduct Authority, a local authority, the NHS or some other medical thing, the education system, where there's a lot of sensitive data, sensitive financial data, sensitive personal data, that kind of thing, you might sort of have an idea of what it's like for these F1 teams to fill in all this stuff. Everything has to be airtight, submitted, crossed T's, dotted I's, all that good stuff. Oh man, FCA paperwork. We can blame the payday loan companies for that. And you know what? At some point I would want to see these finances put out in the public domain. They might be heavily redacted, especially when it comes to salaries of individuals and some other bits and pieces, or even to hide costs of particular parts. So maybe they'll release them when the money spent has no implication on what is on the car at the then current point in time, whether that's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in the same way that the teams aren't allowed to run a current or last season's car for a filming event or something, because you know what's going to happen. If they use the current cars, all the teams are going to be doing filming days, and instead of using the 10 or 15 people that's the bare minimum to run the car, there's 200 people there, and they've all got laptops. And I just want to see them to see what the accounts are like for these particular teams, how they have to file it, whether it is the utter minefield that we assume it is. Anyone that knows me and the channel will know how often I mess up numbers and simple arithmetic, but what would it be like for me to actually go through one of these in a video? It'd be like watching a frightened horse on a frozen lake. Probably. But as Josh Suttil over at The Race said in his closing remarks on everything is that, like I said earlier, the whole Red Bull overspend came after an ending to 2021 that made F1 look silly, and poured kerosene on a fire that was already still burning quite ferociously. But this year, everyone will be able to sleep soundly. While we had this explosion of controversy and outrage and everything else, this year we're going to have no such problems. And maybe next year, we won't have to go through this at all, as all the teams know what they're doing now. How to stay under, how to get the best meal deals, how to sign off paperwork properly, and all that stuff. All that's left to do now is to find some way of stopping that Red Bull rocket ship. Something that, if the cost cap hadn't been implemented, might have been done already, because Mercedes and Ferrari could use their vast resources and brains, well, I mean in the case of Mercedes brains, to fix whatever they need to fix on the cars. But for Mercedes to get most of that spine-crunching bouncing fixed through 2022 without going over, that's pretty good going, it has to be said. When it was rumoured that Mercedes had gone over, that was one of the most logical overspending reasons anyone could think of. Well, you know, at least everyone was on the same page for that. But to be honest, since I did that last video, I'd completely forgotten about all of this. Probably because this year, last year, hasn't been as toxic and sort of hellhole-ish compared to how it was when the 2021 audits were released. So, everybody can go to bed happy tonight. The fans are happy, the teams are happy, the drivers are happy, the FIA is happy. The only people that aren't going to be happy are the clickbait YouTube channels and clickbait F1 websites. So then, opinions on everyone being under the cost cap and those clickbait rumours being just that. Clickbait rumours. If this has made you think things, then get a discussion going, and on the way down, like and subscribe to get all the latest from this channel. Massive thanks as ever to the patrons and members of the channel, and if you want to support at a more personal level, the link to Patreon is in the description, along with links to Discord and my socials. Or there's super thanks if you just want to do a one and done tip. So until next time, I've been AdmiralLaWind, have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.